Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Pillars of Eternity on PC. When they first debuted, Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale were surprise hits in the game industry that left a lasting impression about what CRPGs could be and do. But after their coming, there was little that could compare, and soon their type of gameplay was usurped by other, more popular genres. It was a hole no one could fill, until Obsidian Entertainment decided to try their hand at it. Today we discuss 2015's Pillars of Eternity. Oh, Obsidian. I've discussed a bit about this studio before when I reviewed Fallout New Vegas. Started by ex-Black Isle Studio employees who had worked on the Baldur's Gate and Fallout titles in the 1990s, they had decided to focus on story-driven role-playing games. After the controversial success of New Vegas and the public fight between them and Bethesda Game Studios in the wake of all the issues around the development and release of that title, Obsidian was looking to create a new project wholly their own. After competing internal office pitches were made, it was decided that a fantasy game would be what Obsidian would do next. But funding was not currently in their favor after the losses they had recently suffered. Nonetheless, on September 10th, 2012, on their website, a quote-unquote Project X announcement appeared, and 4 days later, on the 14th of September of that year, Pillars of Eternity was announced as a Kickstarter project. Y'all remember Kickstarter? When it was supposed to be a new way creative people could get funding for their art that didn't need to go through the big threshing machine of lowest common denominator capitalism before it was the tax haven for scammers it has become? No one? Just me? Okay, never mind then. In any case, back then Obsidian was inspired by the Kickstarter success of their friends and old Interplay/Black Isle compatriots at In Exile Studios on the success of the campaign for Wasteland 2. Don't worry, we'll be getting to that one as well. And decided to try and get the public to help fund Pillars of Eternity. Well, it worked, and within the first 5 days of the funding campaign, it had $1.6 million to their credit and development was underway. It made a lot more money by the end of the campaign, around $4 million, but by that point we'd just be stroking our own egos to go further into that. Pillars begins in the world of Eora, and within that a place called the Eastern Reaches. Yep, another fantasy setting that looks very much like the ones you've seen before. Forests, plains, mountains, castles, pitiable villages, ancient ruins. Your character will be called the Watcher. Sounds similar to something else, doesn't it? And you begin as a pile of ones and zeros that is about to be converted through common skills like swordplay and thievery, and abilities granted to you by whatever species you pick to play, such as humans, dwarves, elves, or new ones like the goblin-like Orlans or the freaky godlikes, who are some combination of elementals and half-gods, into something you can play a game with. The time period of the setting is somewhat similar to the early days of the Renaissance, meaning magic technology is becoming more common, and firearms are available to be used, but since they are new and unreliable, they are rare. Despite this being a video game, it is hitting all the high points of the Dungeons & Dragons tabletop game. In fact, the very same formula as Baldur's Gate, over a decade earlier. The big hook here is that a recent discovery found souls are real and can be stolen or molded into something else, which has turned the setting's magic and science on its head. And that after death, souls reincarnate into new bodies, but retain the memories of their past lives. Through some unknown process, a person can recall these past lives that result in becoming awakened. And someone who is really good at it can read other people's souls to gain access to their memories and other things, allowing them to become a watcher, which is an interesting twist on the myth and tropes of high fantasy. But for you are just a low-level caravan guard at the start of the game. When taking refuge for the night, and with a warning about the possibility of deadly arcane winds that could kill the unwary in the region you camp, your caravan is attacked by raiders who begin killing everyone, and as you try to defend yourself, one of those deadly storms kicks up, and you and what few survivors there are flee into a nearby cave to ride out the storm of death. Except the cave is a tomb full of monsters, and you need to try and get through that as well. Upon getting through the tomb cave, you stumble upon some cultists performing a magical ritual that uses machines to strip souls from the victims that they have, and you are knocked out while your fellow survivors are killed outright. Alone, hurt, underarmed and armored, and lost in the woods, but with a new ability to see phantoms and auras, you must try and get to civilization somewhere. Man, it really feels like we've been here before. When your character does stumble into town, it is on the worst day possible. The local lord's wife is expecting their latest child, but the area is under the Hollowborn plague, where children are born without souls, and that puts dozens of babies in permanent vegetative states, unable to do anything except breathe. And wouldn't you know it, the local lord's newborn is the same way. And he has been hanging everyone with magical capabilities for miles around in revenge. They do have some right here. They believe all mages are secretly something called animancers, a branch of magical science that studies and manipulates souls. But here you can start building your party of playable NPCs, 8 in all, that can help you get to the bottom of whatever the fuck is going on here. This is where Pillars of Eternity threads the middle ground between Baldur's Gate's dozens of playable NPCs based on your chosen alignment and playstyle, and Icewind Dale's stuck with the same 6 characters you make at the game's start. Each follower is fully voiced and has their own story and goals and abilities, all of which align with your goals and can hopefully complement what skills and abilities you choose upon the start of the game. You get yourself hired by this lord, who early on gives you an ancient crumbling property in the form of a keep, sitting over a dark secret that may be some sort of eldritch horror, god, or unkillable monster. And this is where your hub will be for the rest of the game, where you can investigate its own mysteries and set up your companions around the place and even fix it up with your ill-gotten treasures that you collect throughout the game, making yourself a formidable lord in your own right. Oh, did I mention that your new status as a watcher is slowly driving you insane, and you need to get to the bottom of this whole quest before it kills you? Because you really need to get on that right away. Well, your investigations lead to the cult you first saw outside that cave, whose leader is named Theos, and is manipulating things from behind the scenes to make animancers look like this is all their fault. So that lord was sort of correct. Anyway, the whole point of this shit fiesta is that Theos has been suppressing a terrible truth through centuries of reincarnation, and is using his cult activities to further his singular goal. So spoilers ahead. The gods are fake. Oh, thank the universe. Someone has had the courage in a fantasy setting to say that the gods are made up. And I'm not kidding when I say this. Centuries ago, Theos and his buddies were watching the world fall to chaos due to various religious wars, with people using gods and religion to justify the morality systems. And they knew that there were no gods to support this, and couldn't explain to people that they would have to, say, use their own goddamn brains to figure out ethics, or they were afraid immorality would get out of control. So to fix this, Theos of long ago used souls to make some synthetic gods. Yep, you heard me. They made Dark Ages Build a Deity workshop. And in particular, one of these synthetic goddesses decides she hates these animancers and wants them destroyed. So Theos has been sacrificing the reincarnated souls of newborns and others to strengthen this goddess. So even in fantasy, we are God-winning the debate, in a way, jumping right to baby murder. So now it's a story created by a fucking internet chat room troll. Now, of course, these other gods don't want the mortals to find out the truth either, but they don't want to be dominated by just one goddess, so they back your character in the fight to kill Theos and his goddess. Again, with the JRPG scenarios. All Pillars is missing here is the beach episode. And of course, like the ending of Fallout New Vegas, your actions throughout the game, once you ice this killer goddess, modify the endings, besides the 3 final paths you are offered at the end of the game. So nothing new here. We really have been here before, even if by different routes. None of this is to say Pillars of Eternity is a bad game. It's a very good game, in fact. Upon its release, the critics found it pleasing, and a good return to, by the terms by which video games age, absolutely ancient Baldur's Gate mechanics, and isometric tactical combat, which had been tweaked and polished to perfection with tons of quality of life improvements, or at least the kinds that were available in 2015 and on the budget they were using. The major game rags gave it a bunch of 8 out of 10 awards, nominations for all sorts of game related horseshit, praise for customization, no overacting, beautiful artwork, and all the goodies. Everyone patted Obsidian on the back for a job well done. The game got a sequel. They're even at the time of recording working on an in-world spin-off game called Avowed, which looks like a competing Elder Scrolls property. I bought copies of this game, both on PC and PS4. Lovely game. Great return to form. Absolute recommend. Especially love the Tell Me a Story mode that cut down on the tactical gameplay bullshit I just do not have time for anymore. But, but, I just have this nagging feeling for a long time about pillars. Like, no matter what, there are just some things we cannot escape. Despite the changes and the decades that have passed, we just keep writing the same thing over and over, playing the same games over and over. This is a Pathfinder, a Divinity Original Sin, an Underrail. It's Planescape Torment, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale. It's any D&D game I've ever run. No surprise, since I based a lot of my early storytelling on these games. It's Conan the Barbarian. It's The Wheel of Time. It's The Sword of Truth. Harry Potter. Cyberpunk. The Lord of the Rings. Star Wars. It is every college English professor's tale that they argue for when they pull a copy of Hero with a Thousand Faces off the shelf. And I can understand, even after all of this, why critics, who longtime listeners know I generally do not agree with, feel that there is a fatigue in this genre. Why so many intellectuals and pseudo-intellectuals feel like fantasy or sci-fi or any one of those subgenres are just schlock. They keep following the same stories and paths first laid out around ancient campfires and in the early villages around the Fertile Crescent, when the subsistence work day was done, and at any time plague, weather, or raiders could undo anything the people had worked for. Escapist fantasy. Yet, even in more serious genres, we see repeating patterns of commenting on love, hate, social change, politics, race, gender identity, war, peace, and what happens to us when we die. And not a fucking thing has changed. In 10,000 years of human society and asking these same questions, we have not accomplished one fuck iota of actual change or progress or answers to any of these things. We just keep making stories for new generations, as those new generations feel the old generations are foolish and those stories no longer have merit. We've learned nothing. And we are on the path to destruction as we continue to learn nothing and do even less. At least in fantasy, they can dredge up a hero or two to keep the society going for a few decades longer. Like the ancient people in Pillars of Eternity, who literally synthesized gods to keep the world going and maybe, just maybe, affect real change. Fuck. I feel like I've said this before, too. Even I don't have original ideas. But I did have a come to terms and come to peace moment with the game before me. As I said, it is a good game, and I congratulate Obsidian not only on their success, but on crafting a complex tale around tough, sensitive subjects. But somehow, I was still restless. Like why I stopped reading epic fantasy or consuming a lot of geek culture media, or much media at all. And then it hit me. I've been looking at Pillars all wrong. Looking at my own gaming restlessness all wrong. And I need to take some advice from a very old source. That's why this is not a We Need to Talk episode. But let me explain. Stories don't change. Not really. What changes are the ideas and the presentations and language of the tellers. Sure, they get some new window dressing with technology changes or evolving social norms. But otherwise, the stories we hear and are told are the same ones that have been floating around since the dawn of time. Same love, same hate, same politics, same greed, same hope, same heroism and villainy. Speaking of theology, in the book of Ecclesiastes, verse 1:9, Written perhaps somewhere between 450 BCE and 180 BCE at the latest. There is a quote that fits here, and apologies to any scholars out there of the Torah in ancient Hebrew, as I have to go off what it translates as in English. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. End quote. Perhaps, and probably, the most true statement in a whole book based on falsehoods, fables, misunderstandings, and social control. But it is nonetheless telling for a line written well over 2,000 years ago. Pillars of Eternity does not reinvent the wheel. What it does do is give us new window dressing that likely improves on the interplay in Black Isle Baldur's Gate formula. But it tells a story of an unlikely hero that you, the player, have had a hand in molding, trying to find their place in a world of fantastical elements and stark, black and white good and evil, even at times when it doesn't seem so stark. Unlike our real world, in which those concepts exist in the same moral and ethical space and have little separating them. That's why we call it fantasy, after all. Same as we've been told before in games, thousands of times over. That's fine. Escapism is a very necessary thing, a way to shield the mind from the onslaught of daily life, with the grinning ghouls on the television telling us bad news with a smile and doing nothing about it, and the grinning ghouls behind the scenes collecting their 30 pieces of silver and pounds of flesh as profit margins rise based on tragedy and social division. Pillars of Eternity is good, escapist power fantasy. It is a good evolution in a tried and tested successful formula. It is a good return and nod to the past for a new generation of players. Just don't expect it to be anything truly different from what you've played, or read, or seen before. It can't be, after all. It just is what it is. Honest schlock to make you think a little bit, but otherwise move on from once you are done. And that's not a bad thing. It is a necessary thing. Getting upset about it, whether genuinely or for reviews and internet views, certainly won't change anything. After all, we've heard that before, too. Thank you for listening.